Hello everybody, my name is Paige and welcome back to my channel. So since we are halfway through the year, I have read 52 books and I picked 20 of my favorite ones to share with you guys today. So they were all 5-star reads from me. We have a bunch of different genres. I'm going to be putting the pictures up on the screen of them because a lot of them I read through my library, Kindle, and audiobooks, but I'm really excited to share them with you guys. So let's get to the books. So the first book I have is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. It's the first book I read this year and it is a memoir by her. I listened to the audiobook of it, of her narrating it, and it just made it hit so much more. I grew up watching her shows and she was always my favorite character. So listening to her narrate this story and tell her life events and what was happening behind the scenes was really touching. And I definitely recommend you go listen to the audiobook and listen to her narrate it. So the second book I have is Beastly and Bookish. It's a romantasy with a demon and a human. They end up falling in love, obviously. There's some spice in it, just a warning. I downloaded this on Stuff Your Kindle Day and I read it so quickly. It was amazing. It's probably one of my first romantasies and it really made me fall in love with the genre. I loved the story so much and I still go back and read my highlighted quotes from it. It's amazing. The next book I have is Educated, and it's a memoir by Tara Westover. Again, I listened to her narrate it, and it was an amazing story, really touching and really inspiring, and I definitely recommend everybody goes and listens to it. It's absolutely amazing. Another one that I read or listened to really, really quickly because the story was just absolutely amazing. She is such an inspiring person. The next book I have is Medusa's Sisters. So personally, I love Greek mythology so much. This is a Greek mythology kind of telling about Medusa's story and then also her sister's stories. So it's from different point of views. And it was just so amazing, seeing all these different point of views and getting a different story than what is usually told about Medusa and seeing her as not a monster, but somebody that was a victim. It was just an amazing story, and if you love Greek mythology, I definitely recommend it. The next book I have is The Fiancé Farce. So this is an LGBTQ romance, and our main character, Tansy, tells everybody that she's dating Gemma, and Gemma needs somebody to marry in order to get her family inheritance. So they end up deciding to do a fake engagement together and they both agree to this. And then you get some tension in there. Obviously, some things happen. There's some amazing Taylor Swift references in here. Absolutely love that part of it, obviously, because I love Taylor Swift. I definitely recommend this romance, though. So along with that last book by the same author, I have Truly, Madly, Deeply. So the two main characters are both bisexual. They meet on a podcast and they don't really like each other at first. But then over time, they slowly build a relationship as friends and then it turns into something more. I really like this because even though it's a romance book, it talks about some problems that the characters are going through that a lot of people don't touch on, and so I really enjoyed that, and it didn't just feel like a romance book. It felt like there was something more to it also. And once again, Taylor Swift references, which I always love and I highlighted a lot of. So the next book I have is The Bodyguard by Catherine Center. So Jack needs a bodyguard and Hannah becomes his bodyguard, and he has to go visit his family because his mom is very sick, and so he doesn't want people to know that Hannah's his bodyguard, so he tells her that they have to fake date. So they end up in this fake relationship, and so obviously we all know where fake dating leads to. But I really like this because, again, it's another book that dealt with some heavier topics, and it didn't just feel like a romance. And it also showed a really strong female main character who was the bodyguard instead of a male main character who was the bodyguard. The next book I have is The Rom-Commers by Catherine Center. So I got an arc of this book and I absolutely loved it. So Charlie writes a screenplay for a rom-com and it's horrible. So Emma gets hired to help him fix his screenplay. And he obviously is objecting to it because he doesn't think he needs any help. But she's excited because it's giving her a new opportunity, obviously, to get her name out there. And it's also giving her a lot of money, which she needs. So she ends up having to stay at his house, forced proximity, and they end up getting really close working together. So this one is a really slow burn one, and it again deals with some heavier topics, and it's not just mainly focused on romance, which is another reason I really love it. The next book I have is A Mermaid's Kiss, so it's a romantasy. So we have Eloise, who is a vampire mermaid, and they only kill and feast on men, and they only do it at a certain time every month, and they all feast together. she meets Jasper, and he has like this intoxicating smell to his blood, and she instantly like falls in love with him. So she goes to him and she feasts on him, but in her heart she can't kill him. So they start this relationship, obviously not really a relationship, but they start kind of seeing each other, and this is a big no in the community. She's supposed to just kill these people. She's not supposed to reveal who she is because it can be really dangerous for her community. So it kind of goes from there, and we find out what happens, and there's some crazy turns in this. I love these two main characters together, and I'm waiting for another book. I highly recommend this one if you really like romantasy. It's pretty thick, but it's worth every page. So the next book I have is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue, and this is a historical fantasy with a little bit of romance. So our main character is Addie LaRue, and she is set to be married away, but she wants a life of freedom. She wants to be able to travel and do what she wants. So she makes a deal with Death, and he grants her immortality, and she doesn't have to marry this guy. But the problem is that nobody ever remembers her. So she is forgotten by all of her family, all of her friends, and she has to go and create a new life for herself. But in creating this new life, again, nobody remembers her, so it's a very lonely life. Until one day, she walks into a bookstore, she steals a book, she leaves. She goes back in the next day, and the guy remembers her. So we kind of follow that story from there, and it is such an amazing story. Like, the twists and turns, absolutely amazing. I loved it so much, and the little bit of romance you get in there is also great. So the next book I have is Never Lie by Frida McFadden, and this is a thriller. This was the first book I've ever read by her, and I've read 3 of her books, and I've loved every single one, but this one holds a little special place in my heart because it was my first one. So we have newlyweds Trisha and Ethan, and they buy this house of this old therapist, and when they're exploring around it, Trisha finds some cassette tapes of some appointments and people that this therapist talked to. And she starts unraveling all of these mysteries. And this book has so many different plots and different like plot twists that happen. It was an insane journey from start to finish. I read this in 2 days because I could not put it down. The plot goes so quick, and there's so many twists that you never see coming, and the ending is absolutely insane. I loved every second of this book. The next book I have is A Game of Rebellion. So this is a romance. We follow Princess Adria. So she lives in this city. She's the princess, and they have these walls up, and they've been up for hundreds of years to protect them from the outside world. There's a lot of things that happen in the city that she doesn't agree with, like killing kind of innocent people who are killed just for stealing food. And they have this arena where people have to fight to the death, basically. She doesn't agree with this. So one day her guard is killed in a rebellion attack, and she gets this new guard, and he's younger, and she finds him very attractive. And she starts talking to him, and she realizes that maybe her mother and father are hiding some things from her that she didn't know before. And she starts kind of getting in her head that maybe they aren't doing things the right way, and maybe she'd be a better leader. So that's kind of what we follow, and it's such an amazing story. I binge read this one so quick. It was amazing. The next book I have is Don't Want You Like a Best Friend. So this is a romance. Our 2 main characters are females, so it's LGBTQ, and it feels a lot like Bridgerton. And also the title is Don't Want You Like a Best Friend, very Taylor Swift inspired. So if you're a Taylor Swift fan and if you're a Bridgerton fan, you're absolutely going to love this book. I loved it so much. The next book I have is The Naturals. So this is like Criminal Minds, but if it was teenagers. So all of these teenagers have these natural abilities to help the FBI solve unsolved cases. So our main character, Cassie, is brought in, and she joins this team of all of these teens just like her that have natural abilities, and they're helping the FBI solve cases as well as doing training to help enhance their natural abilities. And there is a really big mystery that starts to unfold while she is there, and there's a huge plot twist you never see coming. This is such a quick-paced book, and it is also part of a series, and I can't wait to read the rest of the series. The next book I have is Bring Out Your Dead by Heather Murphy. So it's a paranormal thriller. So our main character, Lucy, her mother unfortunately dies, and she finds out she has this family she never knew of. So her and her 6-year-old son go to stay with their family and kind of become acquainted with each other. But while she's there, she starts to learn some family secrets that she didn't know, and there's some pretty big secrets. And then some even bigger secrets start to unfold, and she starts solving this mystery that's going on. And obviously there's a paranormal aspect to it, but I'm not going to get into that because I don't want to spoil it for you. But I highly suggest this one. Definitely go and get it, especially if you are a big Stephen King fan or a Riley Sager fan. Absolutely loved it. The next book I have is Bride by Ali Hazelwood. It is a paranormal romance. We have Misery and we have Lo. Misery is a vampire, Lo is the alpha werewolf, and they are getting married to create an alliance between the vampires and the werewolves. Obviously, Misery is going into this arranged marriage with no expectations, but she is going in for her own benefits, which you later learn, and obviously they end up being more than just an arranged marriage. And I really enjoyed this one. I'd never really read anything like it before, so it was my first time and I absolutely loved it. I'm trying to find some other books that are like this. The next book I have is The Wishing Game. So this kind of has a little bit of everything, like a little romance, a little magic. I want you to go into this with no expectations, no reading about it or anything. This is such an amazing book. I picked it up randomly in the library one day and I went into it not really having high expectations, but I was like, oh, this looks good. And I loved it. I laughed, I cried, I giggled and kicked my feet. It's so amazing. I highly recommend this. Just go in with knowing nothing about it. The next book we have is Gladefolk. This is a romantasy. It's got fae in it, and it's just, there's so many little plot twists and stuff happening. It's so adventurous, and I just absolutely loved this book so much. And I highly recommend it if you like romantasy. Even if you want to get into romantasy, it's not like a lot of world building. There's not too high a fantasy level, so this is a really good way to ease yourself in. The next book I have is Dark Oz. So this is a dark romance, and it's kind of like a why choose romance, and it is also a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, but a dark retelling. So if you like The Wizard of Oz and you like dark romance and you like dark retellings, I highly recommend this one. It kind of follows a little bit more of a darker plot, obviously, but it's definitely a really good book, and it has a lot of spice, I am warning you. The last book we have is Divine Rivals. So this is a historical fantasy romance. I absolutely loved our two main characters in this book, like the tension that they have, but then also it's not just a romance. It's focusing on so many more topics like loss and grief, and so much more is going on. There's a whole war going on that they're writing about. It's just honestly amazing. I highly recommend this one, and I cannot wait to read Ruthless Vows. So I'm going to wrap up this video here. I hope you guys liked those suggestions. If you've read any of them, comment down below so we can talk about them. If you liked the video, give it a like. If you like me, go ahead and subscribe. In the description is my Instagram and my Goodreads if you want to go follow me over there and see what I'm reading. I really enjoyed talking to you guys today and sharing some of my favorite reads of the year. Bye, guys!